Hi everyone, I'm Andy McCulloch. I'm one of the solutions architects at Ultima, and today we're going to be talking a bit about zero trust network access and Citrix Cloud and how that plays into some of the themes we're seeing in hybrid working today. So hybrid working, as I'm sure you're all aware, is pretty popular these days. So off the back of the pandemic, I think a lot of people have realised that actually kind of productivity can be maintained in a hybrid working environment, and the amount of personal benefit employees find from the flexibility of hybrid working, I think is really forcing its way to the forefront for a lot of organisations. So we see in most organisations there'll be some kind of like flexible working model with the expectations that most employees, depending on their role, but most employees would expect to be potentially in the office for a period of time and working remotely for a period of time. Obviously there are exceptions in different industries. Obviously if people's role involves them building things with their hands, that's kind of a little bit more difficult to do remotely. But if in the majority of use cases for kind of office-based work, there is definitely a significant trend towards hybrid. Now, obviously we're talking about Citrix. Citrix obviously has a big place within hybrid working models. I'm sure we're mostly aware that Citrix has some capabilities around being able to securely deliver applications and desktops to users on a variety of devices. So we're not going to go into that today. I want to talk about something a little bit different, which is quite new, which is Citrix's Zero Trust Network Access solution, and what this offers for hybrid working. So when people had to go remote, kind of cast our minds back a couple of years, there's a big scramble. People who had already invested in remote access solutions were hopefully able to scale those to be able to support new use cases, kind of new demand. People had problems with that. Obviously, kind of we had kind of unprecedented demand for kit, which meant that, okay, well, we might need an extra 2 servers to be able to support all our users. Well, what happens when you can't get those 2 servers? That's a little bit of a problem. So in a lot of scenarios, people did what would work. And sometimes that was a case of, okay, we might have some old laptops in the cupboard that's yet to be kind of sent to a recycling service because we're environmentally responsible. Let's get those up and running in some way, shape or form. And what's the best way that we can get these users into the environment? Now, if you've not been able to scale your Citrix environment, sometimes the answer to that was VPN. Now, VPN is a bit of a dirty word. Most organizations kind of accept it as a necessity, but they really don't like to look at it because it feels like it's a bad security idea. And it kind of is. Giving remote devices, direct network access to your corporate network is probably not a great security principle, but people make decisions and kind of sometimes risks have to be taken to keep things going, and that was the position a lot of people ended up with, where they maybe made some compromises but it got everything working. Now, some other organizations may be more strategically based behind VPNs. Now, depending on the solution they're using, that may be granular enough that they can justify the level of connectivity they're providing to the endpoints. But again, typically there's still a very low level of trust of devices that are outside of the office, and giving those devices direct network access of any form can be a risky proposition. So this is where zero trust network access comes in. So fundamentally, zero trust network access does involve some kind of a VPN, but it's a more pleasant type of VPN in that you're not directly connecting a device to your network. You typically connect your device to an intermediary service. So in Citrix's model, zero trust network access is provided as part of secure private access. So users, when they authenticate to the secure private access service, will, based on their identity and based on their context and based on the allowed applications that are assigned to them, be given a granular set of access to a particular set of network resources in your environment. Now, this is all delivered as part of the concerted service under Citrix Cloud. So through the same interface, you have access to your virtual apps and desktops, your Citrix DaaS services, your SaaS and kind of internal web applications, but there's some things that just need network access and they just won't go away. So Zero Trust Network Access has the capability to be able to address that use case of an application that exists on the endpoint. So a scenario may be a DBA who needs access to a SQL database, for example. They want to be able to run SQL Management Studio on the endpoint, or their own set of like DBA tools on their particular endpoint for doing perhaps some data analytics or just general maintenance. And they just need some very lightweight port-based access to a SQL server that sits on the internal network. Now, if that's the only thing they need, then it's difficult to justify a full VPN tunnel. But if you can very granularly just allow that user access to that SQL server on the approved ports with security around it. So with secure private access, we also have the adaptive authentication service, so you can provide highly contextual authentication mechanisms to determine exactly what level of trust you should assign to that user. So for example, you could have a rule which says user Joe Bloggs, who is on a trusted device which has antivirus and is in an otherwise good state, can access this SQL server on port 1433. You could also have in your authentication process, if Joe Bloggs, who is on a trusted device that's very healthy, in a good security state, but it's located in Mexico, then don't allow access. So you can get quite contextual with the controls in adaptive authentication service. So it's not just a, we trust the device, we can take into account a little bit more context from that. Also integrating with the analytics capabilities. So we have the ability to take into account risk score. So if you're not familiar with security analytics that Citrix offer, security analytics takes feeds from the different Citrix services that a user might interact with, and based on variance between what is considered normal and what is seen in real time. So if, for example, Joe Bloggs accesses this SQL server a few times a day, Monday to Friday, if all of a sudden we start seeing Joe Bloggs accessing that server at 3 o'clock in the morning and pulling out terabytes of data, then we could take that data and then elevate his risk score because we're seeing unusual behavior. Now that risk score can be used as an authentication factor to determine what level of trust we assign. So if we've seen something unusual, then we might say, well, actually, this is a trusted user on a trusted device, but we're seeing some abnormal behavior. So we might want to limit what applications, what resources that user can get access to, perhaps just temporarily, or you could take further action. So you might want to notify administrators to review the access, or you could send the user a notification. So we've noticed there's been some unusual activity from your device. Now it may be that it's not that person, or maybe somebody shoulder surfed him. There could be a reason why, and you can challenge the user to kind of feed back into that process. So Zero Trust Network Access integrated with the adaptive authentication service as part of Citrix Cloud can solve the problem that can be presented by some applications where they just need network access. And it can do this without the need for deploying VPN solutions. So this is all provided as part of Citrix Cloud. There are some lightweight connector appliances that you deploy in your environment to provide that footprint in your network that the secure private access service can use. These connectors are also used for providing access to internal web applications as well, should you so need them. So as we say, in terms of being able to support hybrid working, Zero Trust Network Access can be a really good way to start to look at removing those tactical VPN solutions, or perhaps where you may have users who have VPN connections to a security appliance that may not have the granularity of access or the identity-based access that you may require to provide a strong security position. So Zero Trust Network Access certainly solves some additional use cases that previously were quite problematic. So it's always worth evaluating what tools you're using for providing these services to users. There may have been some compromises that might have been made in the past where there may be better solutions, more integrated solutions that can provide the same access, but with better security and user experience. So Zero Trust Network Access and Citrix can really help benefit your hybrid working strategy where you have applications that need network access from the endpoints in a secure manner. Hopefully that was a useful overview. Look forward to talking to you more about other topics, but obviously if you have any questions about Zero Trust Network Access, Citrix or Secure Private Access, get in touch with your account manager. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much.